Big agenda. It's like, it's a full house.
All right, welcome everyone. Let's rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I will call the meeting to order. Jeff, are there any changes to the agenda?
Madam Chair, no. Item number 2 was added after it was first published, but it was added on Thursday.
Okay, all right, thank you. Motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Ted moves.
I'll second.
Steve seconds. Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Jeff, we're going to turn to you for the truth in taxation.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This was a conversation that we had after the TNT meeting on Thursday night, that we know that our TNT notices got out late. The vast majority of them were delivered before we held our TNT meeting. Having had conversations with the Department of Revenue, they recommended that the board consider holding a second meeting. So the question to you today is, have we done we recorded the meeting on Thursday. We made it available for people. Have you received any additional comments that would suggest that we should hold a second meeting or
No.
since Thursday?
I have not.
I've only had 2 residents call me since the notices came out, so. And I directed them that it would be available on the county website if they wanted to see the presentation.
Have you had
I haven't
anything?
had any.
I haven't either.
So then,
I would suggest.
on our agenda
yeah.
for today is the approval of the levy and the budget for
Yes.
2025. There's not much point in holding a second meeting after that action. So if you're prepared to make the determination on the budget and the levy for 2025, then I think the consensus would be that we wouldn't hold a second meeting, that people have had an opportunity to ask questions about the budget and the levy.
Are you okay with that?
Oh, yes.
Okay, I wanted to be very clear with that because I'm just trying to make sure that we're documenting that with this Department of Revenue.
Go ahead, Maria.
After you and I had talked before the meeting, you had said that the possibility of that meeting, so our office has gotten flooded with phone calls, and we had told them that there probably would be a second meeting after our first conversation. So I apologize if we misspoke, but we have been telling people there will be another meeting on Monday, so.
That's never been scheduled, but,
Well, we said that they were gonna talk about it today, so just so you guys are
Okay.
aware, we have had lots of phone
Okay.
calls, so just so you guys are aware of it, I'm not saying to change your opinion, but just so
Were-
you guys are aware of it.
were they asking about the budget and the levy or their property values?
Everything, so I'm guessing it was more for us, but even the leader had said about it, so.
What are our options if we do schedule one?
Well, if you schedule a meeting, a special meeting would need 3 days' notice. And then you would have to, if you schedule the special meeting to hold a second meeting, you could also take action at the end of that meeting
To approve the budget?
to approve the budget and levy. Like I said, it doesn't make sense to approve the budget and levy and then hold a second meeting. So if you decide that you want to hold a second meeting, I would recommend putting that item off until the end of that special called meeting.
I guess I don't have a problem having a second meeting. I always like to make sure that the public, that the residents of Hubbard County and the taxpayers of Hubbard County have their opportunity to speak their mind. So I have no problem having a second TNT meeting.
I'm kind of with you, Ted. I'm rather err on the side of making sure they have an opportunity to raise their concerns.
So that is December 23rd. Are the board members able to make that date?
Yes. I would recommend that it be at 6 o'clock again.
I'm available. Yep.
Okay. All right, so board consensus is Jeff will post a special meeting for December 23rd at 6 o'clock for another TNT. Okay,
And it'll be a TNT, and it will also have, the agenda will also include
right.
the consideration of the budget and levy. When we post a special meeting, we have to post the agenda. We can't change the agenda after we post that, so it'll be just those two items on that at this point.
So for the agenda purposes today, we'll just table all of that.
We'll just table that item.
Okay. Do we need a motion, Jeff, or just consensus?
We do need a motion to set a special meeting.
Okay.
I'll make the motion.
Okay, Steve moves.
I'll second.
Dave seconds. Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
Okay.
Thank you, Maria, for relaying that. All right, public input. We will take public input at this time. There's 10 minutes allowed. We're going to allow actually 15 minutes. Anyone wishing to address the board on issues not on today's agenda may do so at this time. Speakers are asked to approach the microphone at the front of the table. Individual comments are limited to 3 minutes unless a majority of the board approves an extension of the time. And so the time allotted for this forum today is going to be 15 minutes. I would ask that if you come to speak, that you would have something to say that hasn't already been said by someone else that has spoke before you. So who would like to start? Frank? Floyd?
Thank you. Could you pass it? I'll just keep
Jeff, do they need to sign in?
If they could state their name and address before they
Okay.
speak.
Yeah, and I did sign in over there for you.
Okay.
So, but I'll go ahead. My name is Floyd Frank. Live out on Third Crowing Lake, if you need an address there, Jeff. And been in the resort business for 44 years, going on 45, and I know it sounds like the resort business is going dim. Looks like it too. Oh, I shouldn't be speaking. No. Yeah, already got bad omens, yeah, no, so anyway, but, no. But anyway, been in the business for a long time, seen a lot of change over the years. We've tried a lot of things. I've been blessed to be part of a lot of different boards and involved in the community here, so it's been a real blessing to have seen some of these changes and be part of it. But one of the things that the resort business has seen over the years is the decline in our window of opportunity. It's gone from what I used to say 12 to 14 weeks down to 6 to 8 good weeks. And how can you make that 6 to 8 good weeks really work for you as a resort? And we're not just talking, we're talking lodging as a whole, and even as a community, the whole community suffers. You know, that window of opportunity gets pretty small at times. One of the biggest things we see in the resort business is, you know, a lot of times people are calling for those vacancies in that July timeframe, and that part is not an issue to fill in many cases. It's more that front end and back end, and that's always been an issue. That goes way back into the 70s. There's always been a concern about how to take care of the off seasons, that front and the back, and it's very difficult to do. And we've looked over the years too. Lodging tax was one of the things that came up over a couple of periods of times, and it always was not really the answer at the time, and whether it is now, I don't know. I don't believe it is because I don't think there's consensus out there from the people that it impacts, and the impact is the lodging community. We don't have consensus. I did hand out to you what the consensus is on a short review from a lot of folks that we asked, hey, what do you think? Are you interested in it? And it was only on a 2-day thing that we had about 30-some resorts that responded. And out of the 30-some resorts, there's only one that said yes, one undecided, and the rest of them, representing all of your districts, said no at this time. So I think, from my perspective, just to keep things short, is that I think I would really appreciate it from my business, and I think for a lot of lodging folks, is if we just set that proposed resolution coming up in the future on the agenda, just set that aside for now, and let us do our homework a little bit better. Sure, you can say, well, the chamber came in and they gave us all these facts. Well, the chamber is just one piece of the big pie of who we all are. Not everybody belongs to the chamber. Go ahead.
No, you have 1 minute left.
Oh, sorry. So I won't get it done. So anyway, but what I'm saying is that we as a community really need to start working, give us a chance to really work together. We used to have, years ago, a resort association that met. We could meet at the end of the season. We'd all talk about what our issues are and stuff. That doesn't happen anymore. It happens with the CMR, but it doesn't happen in the Hubbard County anymore. And so when the season's over, you don't really have a pulse and a feel for what's happening. And I still don't think we do. And I appreciate you as county commissioners wanted to step forward and take a look at tourism as a big thing for our area, because it is a big thing. And that's where a lot of us survive off of that. But knowing that, but I don't think we as a group have a real pulse on what's happening out there. What do the resorters really feel? What are their needs? And some of the biggest needs are regulations. And here's another regulation that we're imposing on resorts to have to put onto our guests who are our family members. Many of us have, these people have been coming to us for 40 to 50 years or more. I got somebody from 1938. We've been around since 1915. Those people are your family, so you're asking us to put a tax on people that are your relatives and friends indirectly. And is that fair? I don't think so, especially if we don't request it, and we're the ones that happen to carry that ball with us. It's not a fair thing. Yeah. So with that, I'd like to thank you for giving us the opportunity. You have my emails, you know where I stand, and I think a lot of other people do. And I've been on both sides, so I understand that part of it. But I don't think at this point in time the constituency that you represent is 100% in favor. Give us an opportunity to get out there and talk to everybody. We need to get, as a county, and I'm glad that you're doing this as an economic development thing, so that we can get a handle on where we want to go as tourists in the tourism community. What do the resorters really need out there? We don't know. Has anybody been out there and knocked on every door and said, hey, you at Round Bay, you at Indigo, you at all these other places out there, what are you looking for? What do you see the future as? And to say thank you. Thank you very much. Sorry, I got cut off. 3 minutes ain't quite enough for me.
Who else? Anyone? Okay, wow, all right. Are you sure? No one else wants to speak? Okay.
My name is Juanita Nosbush. We're from Cedar Shores Resort on Long Lake. I am opposed to this lodging tax. Number one, we've been at the resort for 30 years. I agree with Frank. There's not been any input from the majority of the resorts in the area, and that needs to happen before we propose any new taxes on our guests that have been coming to our particular resort for up to 67 years. I feel that any tax on our guests is a bad reflection, actually, on our community, that we're going to charge people an extra tax to come visit our community. So I agree with Frank 100% that more research has to be done. I have scoured the internet for these dollar amounts that were presented by the chamber office. I've not found any numbers that even come close to matching what they say has been taken in by these other counties as far as marketing. And if this is a community Hubbard County development tax, then call it that. And that's my input.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else?
Jennifer, Green Valley Resort over in Nevis. We're just 4-year resort owners. We are opposed to this tax. We have middle-income families that come to our resort, and the thought of taxing them 13% with the state tax, the county tax that we have already, and then another 3% if they pay with credit card, and then you would add another 3% to that, to their total cabin rent is not doable for a lot of people. And I know there were comments on the December 3rd meeting about how 3%, well, yeah, we noticed it, but it wasn't that big of a deal. Well, it is to our guests. And we are full. We would do better, we would bring in more revenue as a resort if we were able to expand. We have no cabins available for people, and we just took over 4 years ago. And when we took over, it was 28% occupancy. Now we're at 82%. So there are people out there that want to come to this region still. And I think, like I said, we would generate more revenue if we could expand our resort, which we're not able to do. Another thing, I thought it was interesting in the Park Rapids Enterprise, they did the poll online, 68% of their readers are against the lodging tax. I think that's something you need to take into consideration. I guess that the handout from the Heartland Lakes DMO, where it says there are longer wait lists. Well, as I said, if we were able to expand, there wouldn't be a wait list. And you're gonna generate most of your tourism money in the summer than you are in the winter, which was dependent upon the weather. The spring and the fall is hit and miss. You're not gonna get families. You have school. Schools are starting sooner and sooner. So our little window of opportunity is in the summer. And so that's all I have to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there anyone else?
Hello, I'm Andrew Hansen from Mantrap Lodge on Big Mantrap Lake, Clay Township. I'm in favor of the lodging tax and am a part of the process of putting together everything. As a resort, we do a lot of advertising. We do a lot of sports shows. We go out into the public, talk to different people, and we have noticed there's a big lack of knowledge of this area, of the Park Rapids area. So when we go to the sports shows, we normally have to tell people who we are, where we're from. We don't have that brand recognition that other areas in the state have. And I think that this provides us an opportunity to do that, to be out there, be known, drive more people to come to our area. We've noticed that, you know, we really had a peak of business about 2 to 3 years ago, post-COVID. We had waiting lists for people at that point. That has dried up. That has gone away. What we're starting to see is a downward slide of the overall interest in the area, and we need to drive that back up. We see what the possibilities are and feel like that's where we need to maintain over time. There's no reason we can't do that. If we did it 2 or 3 years ago, we should be able to maintain that overall. So I think this is a key piece of doing that, providing this opportunity to market the area and tell it, you know, we're proud of the area. We want to make sure everybody knows about the area and try to drive people into the area as well. So, like I said, I'm for the lodging tax, and I think it's a good opportunity for us.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? Okay, well, thank you. We will close public input, and we'll move on to the consent agenda. Is there anyone here that would like to pull anything from the consent agenda? Otherwise, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move.
Okay, Dave moves.
I'll second.
Ed seconds. Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, Mike, where are you? We have a long list of public employee recognition today. There's several that have worked here for notable time. Yeah, go ahead.
So first, we have a couple retirements. First, in the highway department, David Kallstorff, maintenance 2 foreman, is recognized for service from July 21st, 1997 to January 3rd, 2025. In the sheriff's department, Troy Christensen, patrol sergeant, is recognized for service from March 16th, 1998 to December 28th, 2024. And we have a new employee, Anthony Rillard, deputy sheriff, began the full-time position on December 15th. And now for our years of service, for 5 years. First, we have Harley Andrews, sheriff. Sean Andrews, sheriff. Sure.
I'll set him, yeah.
Russ Carmichael, Human Services, Transit. Megan Gill, Human Services. Troy Heegard, Solid Waste. Tara Huber, Human Services. Benjamin Lund, Sheriff. Faith McDonald, Human Services, Transit. Andrew Peterson, Solid Waste. Patricia Pfeiffer, Solid Waste. Clarice Plates, Human Services. Alexis Poncelet, Human Services. Kimberly Rumsey, Human Services. Dana Rustad, Solid Waste. Michael Rustad, Solid Waste. Devon Schoon, Human Services. Amanda Sharp, Human Services. And Sydney Weniger, Sheriff. And for 10 years of service, Lauren Anderson, Property Records. Jessica Brown, Human Services. Beth Etter, Human Services. Nicholas Goring, Solid Waste. Jennifer Johnson, Human Services. Lucas Maves, Highway. Bobby Wilkins, Facilities Manager. And with 25 years of service, Aaron Funk, Natural Resources Management. And Jennifer Karanen, Human Services.
Dear, I went way ahead here. What's next?
Highway.
Ryan. The graphs are getting really colorful.
I'm Ryan Miller, the Hubbard County Surveyor. I'm just here to do my yearly report on the status of the survey department. We'll just kind of run through some of the numbers. Still, we have 3,664 total corners. We are now up to 3,341 that are certified or as set as of this year. We only set 29 new corners this year, but as you can see from the maps, we're kind of running out of areas to work in, and which is a good thing. But the corners that remain are the ones that are more difficult to get to. When we are able to access them, we have issues with satellites and GPS signal. So it just often takes multiple trips to try to get a good position on those. So we're just trying to knock them out as much as we can, but we had 28 corners that were reset. Mostly this is due to road construction, and we usually are in coordination with the highway department and MnDOT, and we go out and pull the monuments before they do construction on the roads, and then once the project is completed, we go back in and reset the monuments for the surveyors to use. So you can see on the one map, those are the corners that were in Highway 34, County Road 6, and Highway 87 down by east of Hubbard were the main ones that we reset this year. We did 4 AMCs, which are auxiliary meander corners, and these are monuments that were set on islands on some original surveys that kind of happened between about 1900 and 1980. They had any islands that were missed on the original surveys in the 1860s and 70s, they would go back and survey these islands to try to get them on the tax rolls and get them sold. So there's probably, I think, low 30s for a number of auxiliary meander corners in the county. And we've got about half of those that are recovered. We set 2 new property corners, doing some work with the Parks Department with Natural Resources. We're up to 91% of our corners have GPS coordinates, which just makes it easier for when there are issues. If they are disturbed or destroyed, we can easily go back and reset them. We ran into one just off the top of my head up in Heart Lake Township, where we went out to do maintenance on the corner, and it had been hit by some type of construction equipment and was ripped out of the ground, and so we had to reset that one, and we'll file a new corner certificate on that. We've done a lot of work with several other departments. We often are working with NRM for timber sales and property lines for those guys to make sure we're not having issues with cutting trees that aren't ours, or if private landowners are doing cutting, to make sure they're not cutting our trees. So we did 30 surveys that required either section subdivisions or survey work, which in some cases requires us to go out and mark the lines to make sure. Often if there's buildings or something that are close to the line, we'll go out and mark them for them, so we make sure that everybody's on their own side. We looked at 22 survey-related issues for other departments, often with Environmental Services and GIS. Anytime they get subdivision surveys in, if they have questions or issues, they'll send them over and I'll take a look at them and make sure that there's no issues with that. And we wrote 8 easements and legal descriptions. Some of the tax forfeited parcels we had to rewrite legals for. The state had issues with them, so we just wanted to make sure that the legal was good and that there wasn't going to be any future issues with those. Going forward, we're just going to continue towards the 100% remonumentation. Like I said, we're at 91.2%. We're doing significantly better than a lot of counties in the state. There's a lot of ones that are well below 50%. You know, there's some maps online. I could send links if you're interested that show the remonumentation for other counties, and we're probably top 20% for remonumentation in the state at least. But yeah, there's a lot of, especially around this area, there's not a lot of full-time county surveyors or just survey departments in general. And that is a big issue with, you know, talking to private surveyors. When they work in other counties, they run into a lot of issues just trying to find information because it's just not cataloged well, or stuff doesn't get turned in. So that's one thing that I've been told is a big benefit to working in Hubbard County is we have all our records, we have easy access to everything, and just a good line of communication with them, and they really appreciate that. I guess my goal is to try to complete full remonumentation of a couple of these other townships that there's just maybe 5 or 10 corners left in those, and I try to like to be able to knock those out so we can say we got, 100% remonumentation in some of these townships. And then we'll can be continuing to update our records and filing corner certificates so that, everything's up and available for the private landowners or private surveyors to have access to our information. And I guess if you take a look at the map, the one thing instead of setting new corners, like I said, we only had 29 new corners, we really emphasized doing monumentation or remonumentation on the corners that maybe haven't been visited in a while. And that's what the yellow dots indicate on the 2024 map. These are corners that haven't been, the corner certificate wasn't filed within the last 25 years or so. So there's a lot of that information that's, it could potentially be lost if you don't go back and visit those corners and, re-update the corner ties and make sure the monument's still in the ground and still in good condition. So we concentrated on getting a lot of those redone. I was working with Jack from GIS, and he had created a map that kind of showed the status of when these corners were last certified. And so we used that to try to put more emphasis on some of those older corners to try to get back and make sure that they were still in good condition. And so we actually visited 191 of those corners, and we'll file new certificates on those to keep the records updated on them.
Thank you, Ryan. Is there board comments or questions? Great job.
Thanks.
Andrea?
I have 3 items this morning. The first item is the approval of the resolution for MnDOT to use CASA 9 and 3 for their road construction plan on Highway 200 in the summer of 2025. I talked to the project engineer with MnDOT, and he said this project is planned timeline from July 1st to August 22nd, so later summer construction. And the detour will be on for 22 days. There is incentive for the contractor to finish early. So hopefully the timeline will be shorter. I will be in contact throughout the year with them on these projects that happen in Hubbard as well.
Board wishes?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Okay, Steve moves.
I'll second.
Tom seconds. Is there further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed, motion carries.
Okay, the second item is to approve the final payment for our Project SP 029-613-012, which was the bridge replacement over the Crow Wing River on CASA 13. That was Redstone Construction, completed that project this summer, and the final payment for that project is $76,098.30.
Motion to approve?
Sure.
Okay, Dave moves.
I'll second.
Ted seconds. Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
All right, and the last item I have is another approval of final payment, and that's on SAP 029-594-001. This was the city construction on Fair Avenue that the city completed. They had LRIP funding on that project, so we were the financial pass-through for the city. And the final payment amount on that one would be $199,867.58, and that is to Kushel Underground was their contractor for that project.
I'll move to approve.
I'll second.
Okay,
I do have a question.
Go ahead.
Jeff, could you scroll up one page? It says Redstone,
Okay.
not Keikel.
It
So
does.
Keikel,
that
that
would have
was-
to be
okay.
changed.
So the
Yeah, that's
recommendation
okay.
is to Keikel.
Yeah, I'll
Underground.
have to, I probably copy and pasted when I was doing the agenda items, but I'll change that.
do you want me to amend my motion to include that,
The name.
the name? Okay, I will do that. Steve, you okay with that?
Yes.
Or not, who seconded? Tom seconded, okay. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
Okay. and
Anything
that's-
else?
That's all I have today.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Morning. It's a big day for the history of our department, so I'll get started with the first item is not to do with our department, but to the DNR. Christine was not able to make it due to a medical emergency, so they're looking to, they're requesting an approved resolution to use RIM funding to purchase a conservation easement on private land in Akeley Township. This property is 157 acres along Shingabee Lake and Shingabee River. The property owner would like to keep the forest land protected while keeping the land in private ownership. Sorry, don't need to speak, make it ring like that. But the RIM funding needs county approval and a county resolution to be able to be used.
So Corey, it said, the boundary was in orange, I get that. What is the green or the?
The blue is
Yeah.
the rest of their property, so
Oh, the rest of
usually
it. Okay.
you can't put property that has buildings or structures or roads into this RIM funding. It has to be natural forest land, so. Yeah, and it's, you guys, I'm sure, have been to the Shingabee area. It's a pretty beautiful natural landscape most of the way around that area into Chippewa National Forest, and the property owner would just like to protect it for the future, with continued tax roll, the property continuing to be in the tax rolls and forest management still to be taking place.
So what happens, like generations down the road, they're not able to pay the property taxes?
Yeah, so I believe it's in their deed. I'm not a wizard on the RIM funding, but I believe it's in their deed where they have restrictions what they can do with it. But if it goes tax forfeited, then it's a whole different situation.
Well, that's just it, they can't do anything with it. There might become a generation who can't afford to pay the property taxes on a property they can't do anything with.
Yep, yeah, so, yeah, you mean like development, or
Yeah.
if they'd like to develop it? Yeah, I really don't know what the future holds out there, and,
However, it is a private landowner and,
yep.
and it's his
It's
or
just
her
his deci-
wishes
yeah.
that we
How
do
much
this.
is he getting from the RIM?
I really don't know. I wish he was here to mention it, but,
I don't know, I just think some of these kind of easements, they create potential problems in the future.
sure. Yep. Yeah, it's a landowner wish that, I don't know if they're older in age and they want to keep their 157 acres protected, after they leave, but,
What would happen if we didn't approve it?
they would use other funding. Yep, so, yeah.
I mean, I get the right of the property owner to do, what they somewhat wish with their land, but
Yep.
Tom's point is pretty valid, multiple generations
Mhm.
later, if,
Yeah, I don't know if it's 100-year sunset or what it is, but,
and I didn't see that in the agreement there anywhere, any timeframe, so.
I didn't either.
and,
It goes on.
Perpetuity, I believe.
yep. And if it's something we want to table for now, like, we can wait for her to come to another meeting and explain it, but.
I see a few of these with the Mississippi Headwaters Board, where
Yep.
they want to protect the Mississippi River, and specifically, obviously. And I could see, by looking at the map, that some of this looks like lowland,
Mhm.
which probably wouldn't be much for development anyhow. It does look like there is some fields in that there, though, too. perhaps even some buildable lakeshore on that. But I understand the private landowner's desire to try to protect this into the future. And I guess if future generations couldn't afford it, of course, they still can sell it to someone that may want to have a piece of property that you can't do anything with but walk across and stuff like that.
Yep.
If I remember correctly, if there's an existing field, I believe that they can still farm that field.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
if there's existing trails, you can still maintain those trails.
Yep, and then you can still do forestry work and
Yeah.
timber sales.
And some of these easements require a forest management plan prior to getting the easement.
Yep.
So I'm willing to make a motion to approve, but if the board's wishes are to table it to have more information in the future, I could also support that.
The other thing the owners go into this eyes wide open about what they're doing. I mean, they potentially could be devaluing their land when they go to sell it at some point in time, so
It's
they
a-
understand that.
Yeah, it's surprising it normally doesn't work that way, yeah, but I guess I'll see what happens here, and I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second it.
All right, is there further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed?
Aye.
Okay, motion carries.
All right, the big one of the day for us. Howard County has had a management plan since about 1961. A lot of the plans were created out of house by private companies or different colleges or other sorts of ways. So we did it. We did it in-house this year. I did a lot of research and a lot of future modeling of timber values and numbers, the volumes of timber cordage, and just looked up a lot of different things going on in Hubbard County, recreation, visual quality issues. I really dug into a lot of stuff with this new management plan. So I'll just go over the background information here. The Hubbard County Natural Resources Department, along with a Forest Advisory Committee, have approved and finalized a forest resource management plan to begin in 2025. The last fully executed management plan was implemented in 2002. Notable changes from the prior plan include increased visual quality standards, increased environmental quality standards, provide adequate recreation opportunities while minimizing user group conflicts, deer stand policies, camping policies, and open and closed trail policies. And we included additional forest development information. And there is a small decrease in aspen and hardwood harvest acres, but higher quality and more cordage will be available for purchase. And an increase in pine and spruce acres that will be managed due to the thinnings coming in the near future. Approximately 2.1% of the county forested acres will be managed each year, totaling 2,290 acres and 40,722 cords. And the management plan will be valid until December 31st, 2034. That's a 10-year plan. So that 40,700 cords would equal at 2024 values at about $1.7 million per year. We try to budget for about $1.5 million a year for timber value. So at that number, we're definitely meeting our budgeted value and a little bit higher. And just an updated plan is beneficial to our land department. It's beneficial to the residents and visitors and recreationists of Hubbard County. It's beneficial to the ecosystems and wildlife habitat on county lands. It's beneficial to the forest products industry and future generations of forest and forest users. And I know it's taken a little bit of time, but I want to thank the committee members. They volunteered their time. I thank Tom and Ted for coming. They had good input at the committee meetings, but I'll just go over the list here. We actually had 22 people on on our committee. All different backgrounds. Irv Brotland, a logging business owner in northern Hubbard County. Robin Walsh, a logging business owner in southern Hubbard County, Dick Walsh Forest Products. Brian Bignall from Forest Industry, he's the procurement manager at Potlatch. John Cordall, the owner of A&C Lumber. Tom Stursa, he's a retired DNR wildlife technician and also part of the Deer Hunters Association. Ed Ranson, he's part of the North Country Trail and I believe the Rotary here in town. Carter Hedin, forest landowner and outdoor recreation. Ron Nornberg, retired DNR forestry, outdoor recreation. Richard Ohm, a business owner and a snowmobile club president. Steve Funk, environmental education teacher here in Park Rapids. And Andy Keitzman, the Clay Township Chair and Camp Wilderness Boy Scout Camp Director. So I thank them people for their time. We had some timely meetings that went a little longer than expected, and really glad they volunteered their time and supported this plan. We definitely had some input that we had to change from previous plans, and I think it's all, everybody agreed. There was a consensus for the agreement. If you want, can you go to page 62 on that? 62 is kind of the big forestry page, down a little bit. Up one, or actually 61, sorry. Yeah, right there. So there's a graph that shows all of our timber species that we manage and then how many acres we will do every year. So aspen, 1,600 acres per year, and then pine at the second highest at 300 acres per year. So you can see that 1.7 million there at the bottom with 2.1% of the acres being managed per year. And really those, I followed the same modeling the U of M did in 2002, and the percentages actually didn't change a whole lot with being 20-some years later. So aspen went down a little bit, pine went up a little bit. So and then we split them out into, we have 4 districts in the county. District 2, which is kind of central county, that has most of the aspen, so there's going to be a little more acreage there to manage each year. And then a little bit more pine up north and then down south.
So Corey, talking to a couple loggers, they told me Norways generally are best to harvest like around year 20. Does that sound right?
So you can thin Norway around 25 to 35 years old usually.
Okay. Because I was just looking at that chart, and there's quite a bit in the 31 to 40-year-old range.
Yep. So a lot of that's actually been thinned already. So you wait another 5 to 10 years to thin it again. Norway's it's a good asset because you can thin multiple times. Like other species, you have to clear cut and you start over. But Norway, you can harvest for 150 years if you want the same stand with all the thinnings.
Corey, do you see a lot of these as pine plantations or from
Yes.
natural
Yep.
growth?
Yep. There isn't too many natural stands left on the landscape. Just with previous harvest and insect infestations. A lot of the thinnings actually started around the 1930s. The CCC camps would plant pine for their job. So.
You know, every once in a while I'll see a sign on a stand that says it was planted in 1960 or something like that.
Yep.
But to see it 80-some years later.
Yep. Yeah, a lot of people don't know, I get phone calls saying you're cutting this aspen stand. It's never been cut before, but really a lot of these stands have been cut 2 or 3 times. People don't understand that. It's a lot of the county forests are on their 3rd rotation of forests already. Especially when the big mills and big sawmills came in the late 1800s. So there's a lot of history in Hubbard County. It's surprising what you'll find once you start digging. So.
Corey, I thank you and everyone else for the hard work. This was a really interesting read, and if any of the public is interested, there's a lot of history in here, and I'll just mention one thing. At one time, there was 5,000 men employed at the peak of the production. That was pretty amazing to me, but I also appreciated, because I don't understand much about forestry. I leave that to Tom. But, yeah, but just your plan as you harvest, then you're gonna replace certain species. And so
Yep.
it was all very interesting, and since I've been a commissioner, we've been waiting for this. So it's wonderful to have it done,
I
so
know,
thank
the
you.
first day I got hired over a year and a half ago, I think Jeff said this was one of my priorities, so.
Yeah.
it's,
A job
Had
well
to get
done.
done. Thank you. So we're looking for approval for the new 10-year plan.
And I'd like to make a motion to approve, but I also want to say that Tom and I were at the meetings. There was a lot of good participation, a lot of talks, a lot of discussion from everywhere, with the foresters and with the loggers, the DNR people, the sheriff's department had a deputy there. Like I say, it was really good to have all this input, and a lot of the meetings went long because we had a lot that we wanted to get covered and talk about. And I know that over the years, I've had several people, loggers, people that didn't like the logging that was being done, people with four-wheelers and hunters concerned about different deer stands and stuff on county lands. I've had, like I say, over the 6 years or whatever I've been a commissioner, I've gotten all these different calls. And I was surprised at the number of them that were actually referring to the forest management plan. So I know that there's going to be a lot of people that are going to be interested that this is done now, and they'll be reading it again.
And I'd like to get hard copies. We do plan on getting hard copies printed, but passing one out to each of you, and then the committee members, and then the folks in our office. But we'll have more if people are interested, and it'll be posted online too, on our website.
Okay, so Ted made a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Sorry, go ahead.
Okay, Steve seconds. Is there further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
The last thing I have is for the first timber auction for the first timber auction for the management plan. To review and approve 12 timber sales for the January 6th timber auction here at the courthouse at 9 o'clock. So there's 12,103 cords. The total appraised value of the timber is estimated at $284,457.83. This will be the first auction held in 2025 out of 4 auctions. There's actually some pretty nice sales, so that appraised value will probably actually bump up quite a bit after the bids come in. No issues with landowners, adjacent landowners. I think everything's pretty well squared away for this auction. Looking for approval.
I'll make the motion to approve.
Steve moves.
I'll second.
Dave seconds. Is there further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
All right, thank you so much.
Cory, I
Thanks,
do have
Cory.
one question.
Yeah.
Are you having any trouble with sales not getting completed in the 2-year time frame that's allowed?
Not too often. We've had a couple due to windstorm issues, and then wet winters. We do have a couple sales that we had to extend due to a wet winter that they couldn't get in there. But usually here, it seems like people get them cut within the 2 years. So
Okay, thank you.
yeah, yep.
All right.
Madam Chair, I'd just make one more comment.
Yep, go ahead.
Corey might be the only one who's taken my direction saying this is a priority and done it that quickly. But he and his staff have really done this, and this was a big undertaking, and I made one of the meetings, and Ted and Tom can attest that the variety of people that were there, all had an opportunity to have conversation. Everybody's represented in this new plan, and we really appreciate Corey taking that on and getting it done in this short time frame.
Thank you.
Thanks, Corey.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, Brian.
Madam Chair, Commissioners, the agenda item before you today, I'll introduce April from Adult Day Services. Adult Day Services is a program that helps seniors stay home and yet still get the interactions they need. And I'll let her explain a little bit more.
Sounds great. Thanks, Brian. Yep, so I'm here to ask your blessing today to bring a new service into the area. The name of it would be Lakes Area Day Health. Connie Carmichael approached me with the Living at Home Park Rapids, and she would love us to be in in the building that she's renovating over on 218 Industrial Park Road. But I've been a part of the adult day industry for 32 years, and I can tell you I am witness to the many miracles when people get together in the day, they eat better, they exercise more fully, they have access to a registered nurse, whirlpool bath, and there's physical occupational and therapy services. It really helps people who may have had a stroke or have some cognitive challenges. And the goal is to keep them living independently in their own homes. And so when Connie approached me, we did a quick feasibility study for your area. And Hubbard County has 27.2% people 65 and older, which is much higher than the state of Minnesota. And Cass County also is one of the higher counties at 27.8%. And so when I looked at the numbers that should utilize adult day, it is 80 people in Hubbard County are recommended to use the service. There's 75 within a 30-mile radius of the proposed site, and 131 within a 35-mile radius. So we'd really love the opportunity to be able to help a lot of the older adults living in our area. There is a program in Cass County, and we did start transporting people from Park Rapids in June of this year, but that program is only licensed for 24. We're proposing to be licensed for 33 in Park Rapids.
And as I presented, before and within our budgets stuff is that the cost of care for our seniors is what's costing a lot of the time and energy for our workforce. And this is really something that helps keep the people of our community at home and not having that financial burden on them and then the taxpayers. And they get that service, they get to live independently for as long as possible, which I know that we all really, really, really want.
Yeah, it is a true cost saver.
Yeah, for sure.
Thanks,
So
Brian.
is there any short-term or long-term cost to the county's social services department for this?
No. It's a DHS-funded program.
And veterans contracts.
Yes, veterans contracts as well. I know that in
Long-term
Beltrami
care
County.
insurance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like in Beltrami County, they have, I know a lot of the veterans use adult day services quite a bit. And so there's some programming money that they could get from the VA as well. So I know that they would work well with Jerry too, so.
So this could potentially take some workload off your department?
I wouldn't say workload like immediate, but in the long run, yes, it would reduce the long-term care burden that we're going to see, that could potentially start or already exists. So
It's,
Go ahead, Tom.
it's maybe part of the effort of helping seniors to live at home independently. Is there any services where they could learn or have help with how to get their homes, make their homes safer for them to live in? Like a lot of them probably don't have bars by their toilets, or maybe a lot of throw rugs and stuff like that, but they may not know what to do or.
There's more innovations all the time. We're continuing to research that.
I mean, if they're on our caseload, then yes, I mean, there are things that we can do through the waivered services that
can provide the accessibility options for seniors at home. This would possibly be able to help identify some of those people that we would only be identified through like an adult protection report where they have a fall already and it's to a point where it might be too late. And so this is a kind of a brother-sister type program that could help identify that early.
I know a couple of people who said, well, I'm getting my home ready for me to live in my later years. And I go and ask them, because, I'm getting up in that age. What are you doing to it? You're just getting ideas myself.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's, and there's more programs and more, like she said, innovation all the time that really comes up. But, yeah, I think it's a great program that'll provide a really need-based population within our community.
So 2 questions. One is, you said 30-some people, but there's a lot more. So are you thinking of hoping to expand?
I just want to get up and going
Yeah.
now, yes. Yeah, but absolutely, we would be open to that, or even anyone else in the area. I'd like to see that happen.
And then the second question, transportation. How is
Yes.
that handled?
Yep, so that we would be bringing a bus into the area, a 14-passenger bus and an SUV to help get into some of those country roads and more difficult driveway situations.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, if you're ever in Beltrami County, you see the Adult Day Services bus all over the place all the time. And happy drivers, they're always smiling. That's one thing I always see them smiling. So that would be also a really good transportation option here too.
Yeah, the participants want to be at the program, they choose it, so it makes it a great place to work.
And then if we approve this, when would it be up and running?
We're hoping for July 1st or sooner, depending on the state process.
Okay.
Yeah, and so part of this process is to fill the application. We just needed we need the approval from the board to allow to expand services within the county, and then we will work with April and get this application portion filled out and submitted and help her through the process.
When I first heard about this just a few weeks ago, I was really excited. Being that I'm up in the Bemidji area, I'm acquainted, I've known April. We've served together on the North Country Community Health Board, and to have something like this now come into Park Rapids, like I said, I'm really excited about it.
Would you like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve. Thank you.
Thank you, Ted.
I'll second.
All right, is there any further discussion?
How long have these different grants you're applying for been in place? in the state?
Grants for,
Well, it's not a grant. It's basically accessing the different waivered services. So it's not a grant. It's like a service provider.
it's a provider,
Yes.
yes, yeah.
Who's funding it?
It's an application to provide another adult service that's going to be funded through the already existing programs. Yeah, DHS. The So DHS funded programs.
Yeah, veterans contracts, private pay.
Yeah, there is some private pay insurance too. So if they have private pay insurance, it allows them to bill the insurance for the services that they're getting. So some private pay.
Initially, it may take credit or a loan through a bank initially until the more revenues build up.
I just don't want to surprise 3 to 5 years later that it's costing county taxpayers.
Oh, no, I mean, April can
It'll give
attest.
back to you.
Yeah,
and
I mean,
dollars
how
saved.
has it's never, ever cost the county money?
I did a study in Beltrami County, and this was within my first 2 years of employment, and we gifted back over $300,000 a year in dollars saved by people choosing adult day versus home care and Meals on Wheels. And
Yeah, the home care piece is, costs. That's the actual cost that costs one.
employee to go to a home, drive
Right.
time there, drive time
And that's my
back.
employees, so that's where it gets to be, where if you are having to go in and provide those services or work with public health to provide those services, that's the tax dollars that are really hitting hard, as opposed to this, where it's the revenue or it's the taxes of
everybody from DHS, right, and some private pay as well.
My fear is, I know you guys are being straight with me, but my fear is, since Minnesota blew through an entire surplus budget, that at some point there's gonna be cuts.
Yep.
And if we expand services and there's cuts from the state,
I mean,
These services are paid out of existing buckets, not from county buckets.
right, yep, it's,
right, but if the state has to make cuts at some point, the state, we're sitting with an unfunded mandate again, because we expanded services.
And people will still need care.
I understand that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So since I mentioned I've been 32 years, I have gone through budget cuts before and keeping a program alive. We also survived COVID, where the governor shut us down. We survived, we were one of, well, two of, because I helped manage a Walker program, 64 out of 210 licensed programs that survived.
April runs a tight ship and doesn't, it's never been a burden on the taxpayers or the county that they've served in that I'm aware of, so.
Great questions, yeah.
All right, any other questions? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
Thank you.
We will look forward to this starting.
Yes.
Madam Chair, if we can go back,
Okay,
I got a clarification on item 6D for the Highway Department.
okay,
The payment was from, I have to get a different copy of this, but the payment was already made by the city of Park Rapids because this was their project.
yes,
So we need to rescind that motion that we made and make a different motion. And the different motion is that we, as the fiscal agent for the LRIP program, need to release the 5% retainage, $62,500 to be released to the city of Park Rapids for the completion of the project. They've already paid this contractor. We just need to release the LRIP money back to the city.
okay, so I will rescind my motion and instead do what you said.
And make that one?
Yeah. Tom was the second, is that, okay?
And we gotta vote on it too, then.
We have to vote on it,
Yep.
so all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
Good catch.
Thank you.
I got that here. Christina and Andrea both said, we gotta clarify this, so.
Okay, Corey?
I just have two quick items, requesting approval of the purchase of service agreement between Hubbard County and the Lakes Area Dive Team. This is simply our annual agreement that we do, each and every year for the services of the multi-county dive team. And it's typically, if we have a drowning, it's drowning recovery, evidence recovery, and it's in the amount of $5,000. And they're a great outfit. They provided us with fantastic services in the past. It's one of those where you hope you don't need them, but when you do, they're invaluable. So.
I know somebody on the dive team, and I will make the motion to approve this and pass on their comment, that if you fall through the ice, I always wondered how you'd see the hole, and the dive person said, everything down there is great, you do not see the hole. So maybe that's one reason people struggle so much, besides the cold, but anyway, I move to approve.
I'll second.
Okay, further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
Thank you. Second item I have is requesting approval of some tracks for our Polaris Ranger. And we got two quotes from the Bemidji Sports Center and also Up North Power and Sports in Park Rapids. The low quote was locally here at $6,771.23, and those will be funded out of donations. This was something that the Wolf Lake Baseball Club and their gambling fund made a donation specific to our project, so that's where the funds will come from. And as you know, in the wintertime, tracks can be an invaluable part of search and rescue and just being to access certain areas. So we've never had tracks before. I know forestry has them on some of their units, and they're completely allow you to get into some areas where you normally couldn't, so.
I'll move to approve the low quote.
Okay, Dave moves.
I'll second.
Steve seconds. Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, motion carries.
Thank you, that's all I have, unless the board has something for me.
Thanks, Corey.
All right, thank you.
Eric?
All right.
Good morning. I have one item for the board this morning, and that is a final plat application called Destination Estates by Ben and Tammy Ott. You've seen this prelim on the September 17th meeting agenda, and the final came through with a slight adjustment that I think was talked about during the preliminary process, which was they obtained a variance to allow the adjacent lot in the northeast corner of the plat to be reduced in size below the 2¼ acre minimum lot size, so that the southern portion of that property that was encumbered by a easement already could be included in the plat to allow the private road that services the plat to be a straight 90 degrees off of County 13, whereas otherwise it would have had a S shape to it. And so that variance is granted by the Board of Adjustment, and that's been incorporated into the final plat. So that was the only adjustment since you saw the prelim. The number of lots stayed the same, and all the requirements of the ordinance have been met as far as title work and approval by a third-party surveyor. So recommendation from the Planning Commission and staff would be to approve the final plat.
Steve, do you have any comments as you were at the meetings?
No, I think the only thing that was really brought up was, is the reduction in the size of that lot going to trigger anything else that needs to happen on that lot? Is there gonna be anything that's restrictive as far as building allowances and so forth, setbacks, and I think that was the basic question behind it, but the Planning Commission didn't think that was pertinent.
Yeah, the board vetted that, and there's already an existing residence on that lot with well and septic. And since there was already an easement in the area that was allowed to be added to the plat, that area couldn't be used for anything anyway, since the easement ran through there. So that's largely why the board was okay with the variance. And since we don't have countywide zoning and Nevis Township doesn't have any zoning, there isn't any potential land use implications going forward until either of those two entities would adopt some type of land use controls in the future.
Okay, board wishes?
I'll make a motion to approve.
All right, Steve moves.
I'll second.
Tom seconds. Is there any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
Okay, thank you. That's all that I had.
All right, thanks, Eric.
You're welcome.
All right, Jeff.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As all of you know, we've had a recent vacancy in the position of Auditor-Treasurer for the county. I will tell you that we have staff that are dedicated to making sure that we get everything done, that we hit the deadlines, that we get things completed. I've personally had conversations with our audit team, with the Secretary of State, with the Department of Revenue. And the other staff have had contact with banks and IFS and Tyler and scheduled all the training that we have to get caught up. We have a meeting this afternoon with IFS to go through the year-end closing procedure with our accounting system. We have a meeting tomorrow afternoon with Cass County Auditor, Treasurer, and financial staff to go through the end of the year process and make sure that we have all of the important dates and deadlines on our calendar. I am having a conversation with at least one on Friday, a consultant who works for a financial firm. Polk County had recently hired them to do an audit of their process within their audit and finance office. Sometimes when you've always done things the way you've always done things, you just keep throwing stuff on top of each other, and maybe it's a good time to back up and take a look and see what our actual requirements are in that office and make sure that our processes are streamlined. So this is the opportunity to do that. And even before we had a vacancy, we had a conversation about possibly restructuring and pulling the finance portion out of that office and having it separate from the auditor staff, so we have better separation of duties. Many counties have gone to a plan where the finance staff report directly to the administrator and not through the auditor, so we have separation of duties and ability to meet more of those criteria of people checking each other's work. So that being said, my ask of you is to appoint the county administrator as interim county auditor for 90 days while we look through all of our options and dot the i's and cross the t's and get us through the end of the year and the beginning of a year, knowing full well that we're going to have many, many questions as we go along. I downloaded the Auditor-Treasurer map there's one from the Department of Revenue and one from the Secretary of State. We've already got staff working on the spring township elections. There's a special election coming up in April in Nevis School District. We're already working on those things. So yeah, I think we've really got a pretty good plan and a good handle on it. I've had conversations with many other administrators who have been in the same situation, and this is a typical course of action to get us through to identifying what the organizational structure is that will be right for Hubbard County moving forward. But for right now, we need someone appointed as interim so that I can sign these forms to say Certificate of Truth and Taxation Compliance, which I'm gonna have to change the date on. No, it still says 12/28, we're good.
Jeff, if things come, so we can move forward prior to 90 days?
Yes.
Can we we can just move that up?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, if you make a subsequent appointment during that point in time, that'd be good. And additionally, if we're not quite ready to make a determination, then we just extend it.
Okay.
Has the process been started to search for another auditor?
No, because we're not entirely sure if that auditor is going to have the finance portion responsibility or not have the finance portion responsibility. That's some of the investigation that we're going to do, and part of the reason we want to hire a consultant.
I was, I recalled back when I went to that Hubbard, or that Commissioner 101 training, the AMC publication, they said of all the counties in Minnesota, 60 out of the 87 had the auditor-treasurer model. And a lot of them had gone from just two separate entities to the one. So now you're saying, and then they used the reason for that for streamlining and more efficiency. So now you're saying it was better the other way?
Nope. Just a little clarification. There used to be two elected officials, an auditor and a treasurer, and the statute allowed for them to be combined at one point. Okay, then a further statute allowed for that position to be appointed. And now that that position is appointed, we have the flexibility to organize the staff in a way that may be more flexible. And a lot of, Cass County has a separate finance office. They have a CFO. Fillmore County has a finance office that reports directly to the administrator. Again, I haven't made any determinations. I'm leaving space for this. And we want to make sure that when we advertise for a position, we're advertising for the right position. We also don't know that we don't have people who are internally interested and qualified to move up within the organization to fill some of those needs. So the combination of auditor and treasurer was one that allowed counties to get away with only having one elected official in that position. And then the ability for counties to make that position appointed gives them additional flexibility. So there's a couple of extra steps in there. I'm not saying the old way would be more efficient. I'm saying the throughway, after all of those changes, that's an opportunity that many people are pursuing or using and finding it to be very helpful. That would mean that the finance people would be working, for one thing, the county audit is still not complete, and it probably won't be until January. The preferred deadline is for that to be done by September 30th. If we have staff that are designated finance and are not wrapped up with election and other things, they would be focused on those deadlines. One of the biggest challenges we've had in that office is when an election comes up, other stuff suffers. And there's elections, there's taxation, there's accounting, there's the audit is a big portion of that goes on, and we have not done a good job of making sure that all of those functions are staying on track. And that's one of the goals of this review and with this look and the proposal we'll bring to you in the next couple of months, how to fill that position.
This sounds like it'll possibly be a good subject for a work session in January,
Very-
possibly February.
Yep, we can bring a lot more information in January or February. It probably won't be January. We'll be just doing that, but right now we have staff who are all able to, who are all picking up and working with specific deadlines. I know we've got staff that are attending a Tyler training today on closing out tax forfeited sales for the end of the year. There's a specific legal process that has to go through, so that's gonna get done. There's just, the checklist for the auditor is about 2 pages long, and then it's 60 pages of notes. And the treasurer is 2 pages long, and then there's 60 pages of notes. And that's primarily what our phone call is gonna be with Cass County tomorrow. And they have been very gracious in offering their support of our staff in any of this, so.
I think this is a good opportunity for Hubbard County. I know that we're always looking, believe it or not, at trying to be more efficient and trying to save taxpayer dollars. And like I say, now would be the opportunity to look into this. Whether, I know that not that long ago, we had our audit, or our records and assessor's office combined. And I appreciated it when they brought that forward to try to save the county dollars. And looking into this at this point, I think is a good opportunity to look into it. And if it's something that will work, we could, either way, we'll find out which way possibly will work better and go from there. And we need to do something in the interim until we do hire somebody new.
Yeah, I'd be looking for not only the efficiency, but also the transparency of eyes on the dollars and how it's spent.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we all agree that Jeff's plate's already full. and
That's
so-
what I was wondering too. I mean.
So we want to work in an orderly manner, and most of the work actually falls on Jeff, but, so I'm trusting that we will move forward in a timely manner to get this done as quickly as possible.
And I will be providing oversight, and our current staff will be doing most of the work. And I'll have the support of many of my peers who, some of whom have been acting as auditor and administrator for multiple years, some of whom who have done it for 30, 60, 90 days. Lots of people have been in this same situation. It's really a good opportunity for me to make sure that I can better support that office going forward when we make a determination what the organizational structure is and who we need to lead that department. We definitely need somebody to lead that department. This is just interim.
I'll move to approve the county administrator as the interim county auditor-treasurer.
Okay, do you want to put up for up to 90 days? Sure. Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, is there any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
And then, Madam Chair, if we could just actually have a motion to table item 11B until December 23rd.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
So Steve and Ted, is there further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
And item 11C is the issue related to consideration of establishing an ambulance service district. The resolution attached is the one that would be the first step, where Cass County is taking action today on the same thing to establish the service district pursuant to statute 144. Hubbard County would do the same thing. We would set a date for a public hearing in January to have an opportunity for people to comment on the proposed tax. I think we've had conversation about what we anticipate this cost would be, why we've done that. We've had 2 commissioners involved in meetings for at least 6 months. Maybe it's been longer on this one. We held a public meeting on November 25th and we had 55, 60 people in attendance, and that number again that were on a virtual meeting. So this is the first step. The next step would be, after the public hearing, to establish that board. And that would, because it's a taxing district across multiple jurisdictions, it has to kind of be its own little quasi-governmental agency. And the recommendation there, because is more tax capacity in Cass County than in Hubbard County affected by this, is very likely that there would be 3 commissioners from Cass appointed and 2 from Hubbard appointed to that. The requirement is the people appointed to that board need to be elected officials of the bodies that created it.
What were to happen, and I doubt this would happen, but if Cass County didn't approve?
Or Hubbard?
If one or the other of us doesn't approve this, it won't go forward.
Okay, thank you.
I can make a little bit of a comment on, when we were at that meeting, November 25th, Josh, towards the end, just for a rough survey, asked for a show of hands of who would be in favor of forming this taxing district in order to make sure we have adequate ambulance service, and as far as I can see, every hand went up.
Because if this taxing district is not created, there will not be ambulance service, is that correct?
No, that it would have to be, this district would have to be absorbed by neighboring districts, which means you'd have increased response time going to what's this district right now.
If the city of Walker let go their license, with EMSRB, Emergency Medical Services Regulatory Board, then EMSRB would ask the surrounding ambulance districts to pick up that area. And then, of course, their response time, they wouldn't be coming from Walker, they'd be coming from Bemidji and Park Rapids and Longville.
Would that open up a bid process where other ambulance services that are currently not serving could come in and try to bid to cover that area?
If a taxing district is created and the taxing district applies with the EMSRB to take over the license that is currently held by the city of Walker, then going out for bid for a contract provider to provide services to that district is probably one of the first things they would do.
But if this is not created and the city gives it up, then that bid process is not.
No, there wouldn't be anybody anybody holding that license.
Yep.
So the providers in the other area would
absorb.
maybe.
Which would also potentially have a detrimental effect on the service to the other areas.
Yeah.
Potentially, yep.
Especially if they only have one ambulance housed in each adjoining district, it would be problematic for response, definitely.
And again, the proposed, I don't have it here because we had it at the public meeting, and we will have it at the public hearing. 2 things that we said we'd have at the public hearing, if you take this action and schedule that hearing for January 21st, I believe is the date that we agreed we would try to shoot for, is we would have the budget for that ambulance service, providing services to that district now, and that we would have a pretty good estimate of what the tax impact would be. I believe the tax impact on a median home, how did the median home get to be $350,000, is about $55 or $60 a year. It's about $17 per $100,000 worth of value is what the estimates were provided by Cass County Auditor's Office when they did that review.
So we've probably all had conversations with people about how government needs to cut stuff, but here's an example of a situation where I don't think you really have a lot of choice, because people need ambulance service and they need response times in a reasonable amount of time.
Sooner the ambulance can get there, the better. Could be a difference of life and death.
Does someone want to make a motion in that?
I'll move to approve.
Okay, Tom moves, is there a second?
Just a point of clarification, it will be January 21st, will be the hearing date.
So
correct?
the recommendation is to approve the resolution and set the date for the public hearing to be January 21st at 9:30 a.m.
Yep. That's my motion.
I'll second.
Okay, so each county will hold a.
Each county will hold, at this time, it will hold their own public hearing relative to their boards creating a special taxing district.
Okay, all right, thank you for that clarification.
Once it's combined, that board will meet and they will have their own.
Yep,
They will actually be required to hold a TNT meeting based on their recommendation to levy for funds as a special taxing district.
okay, so Tom moved, did we have a second?
Yes, I did.
You, Steve, okay, Steve second, is there any further discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
And then the last item that we have is the consideration of the Convention and Visitor Bureau's request to establish a countywide lodging tax. And the point of this is this resolution would not establish the tax. This resolution would set the date for a public hearing to be able to hear public comment on the proposed tax. Any action to create the tax would have to happen after that public hearing. So, and relative to the legislation, that the special legislation in 2005 that holds out larger scope for Hubbard County to create a countywide tax, is the determination of the county board that tourism is important and that this tax would help to support that part of the county economy. That would be what you would be saying when you would finally get to the point of establishing. You'd say that now, that tourism important and supporting tourism is important to the economy of the county. And you would also affirm that later if you decided to have another resolution, a final resolution where you would either and I will, by way of, I know you all received many comments over the course of the weekend. I have, I think 30, many of them came addressed directly to me. Most of those comments are the ones similar to the ones that you heard today. If you approve a resolution today and schedule a date for a public hearing, I will make copies of all comment that I get relative to that decision available to you and everybody before we get to that point. Since this today wasn't a public hearing, it was public comment. I didn't digest those comments. So anyway, that is it. I don't know if you want to hear from Derek relative to this, or if you are ready to have conversation about next steps the board might be willing to take.
I actually had a question for you, Derek. Do you want to come on up, please? So I think all the board members got multiple emails. Several of us had phone calls. So I'm looking at page 23 of 25, where it says 3% county lodging tax. It's the black. It's got a black box on top. 8 communities, 66 properties, 110 verbos in Hubbard County. Could you tell me, because the bulk of the resort owners that I've heard from are opposed to this, could you tell me the percentage of the potential tax revenue? What percentage of that would come from resorts? Do you have any idea?
Yes, so a little close, my apologies. I'm gonna switch mics.
They're gonna be the same level.
Are they?
Yeah.
I can just back off.
I've had better luck with this one.
Just you and Corey Kimball have voices that make them resonate, so.
Coach voice, we'll call it that. Approximately 200,000 is our estimate. Maybe just a little bit above that. So the hotel side of it would be about 100,000. We're estimating the resort side would be, so if you look at this estimate of around 350 to 400,000,
Yep.
the resort piece is about 200 of that. The hotel piece is about 100 of that, and then the the part where we have the most variance that is very hard to project is the short-term rental. So, and then I know there were some questions shared at the December 3rd meeting. If you would like me to address some of those, certainly can do that as well.
Board wishes?
I'd like to, Peter.
All right, go ahead, Derek.
Okay, awesome. And first off, I guess I would like to thank those resort owners that did speak. You know, greatly appreciate their passion, and they are the experts within the resort industry specifically. And I think most importantly, whether this passes or fails, we have to work together afterwards, because you know I think there's a very clear need that we need to do a better job from a marketing standpoint and from an elevating our area standpoint in terms of tourism, because as Frank mentioned, we are highly seasonal and our season is shrinking, and we need to do something about it. So. You know, I really appreciate them sharing their perspectives and look to continue to learn from each other as we try to move forward. You know, a couple of questions that were asked. One of the questions was the sunset clause. And just want to share a little bit about that. That is a piece that was not initially on our radar, but it came from the discussion sessions that were hosted. And a large piece of the feedback is there's that concern about, you know, there's a lot of fear on if it will have the intended impact. And the thought process on the 12-year piece of it was that, okay, so you put an evaluation period on this. We know that it's going to be at least 2 years, or around 2 years before the marketing campaigns are really even being implemented. And so you're talking 2 years where there's going to be, you know, no meaningful impact, right? And then so we figured about a 10-year period where you can really measure the impact of whether this is having success or not. And so that's where we came up with the 12-year piece of it, is that, you know, 2 years that you know you're not going to have, and then you give a 10 on the back end. You know, I would say our group, you know, if it was a 10-year instead of 12-year, you know, that's reasonable. But the bottom line is it's going to, you know, if this is implemented, it's going to take some time to see the true impact of it. And so you want a long enough evaluation where you can get a really good handle of it. Because I think the reality of it is when you're talking about marketing, people don't necessarily take action on the first ad they see. It's about you build awareness, and then when the opportunity comes that people are considering this type of a vacation or a destination, then you're hoping they're making that decision, right? So we know that it takes some time to truly impact decision making, and that's where that 12-year recommendation had come from, is that it initially came from those discussion sessions and from our resorts and some of those people who wanted to see that type of evaluation period. And then the time period was based on how long we thought it would take to truly get a sense of whether it's working or not. The other piece that I want to make sure to address is the oversight of this. I think it's important to know that even if you implement a sunset clause, ultimately, Hubbard County, you as commissioners would have the authority, and Jeff can correct me if I'm wrong, but this would be passed by you, and you would have the authority to end it. So while, you know, essentially this would go into a destination marketing organization, I can touch on the structure and representation in just a second. This group, this leadership group of commissioners, you guys would have the authority to end it if you so saw fit. And that's where, you know, if it is implemented, there would need to be ongoing communication between this DMO and all of you to show that continual progress, where the funds are being spent, to have that oversight and authority, because ultimately that piece of it lies with you still. Even if the collections happen through the state and the Department of Revenue, like we had talked about, the authority piece of it in terms of whether it continues is in your hands. And I think that's an important thing to be aware of. I've been asked a fair amount about the structural representation piece, and I will, in fairly openness, you know, we haven't shared any of this publicly until today, primarily because we didn't want to get ahead of ourselves. We didn't even know whether it's going to pass or not. We've been having ongoing conversation about how it could work for an extensive period of time, and have tried to get a lot of different voices and input on it. However, we have not been sharing it for those exact reasons. But I think the key parts, and this was in your packet, is that what we would envision is that you have essentially two separate boards and a parent board or executive committee. So there's a few different ways to do this, whether you're talking divisions within a single organization or potentially two separate organizations with a parent organization. But the bottom line is you need to create enough separation and autonomy within each of these areas, as well as separation on the finance side, to make sure we're abiding by state statutes. And I think that's really, really important, and it's critical to, there's a little bit of a perception, I've heard pieces of it, that the chamber is doing this to benefit the chamber. And that couldn't be farther from the truth. The chamber board sees this as an important and necessary long-term step to protect the tourism of our area. And if anything, it's going to further separate the chamber from tourism. So the idea that the tourism side would have more autonomy than it currently has today. And I think that's an important thing that we want to make sure we communicate. And again, there's a model shared. The other piece that I want to share a little bit is the representation side of it. What we would potentially see is that within, you have these two separate boards. The chamber board would likely function fairly similar as it is today. And then the tourism board would be fully elected by all of those, but it would be elected by those contributing the tax. And that the majority of the seats would be designated lodging types, contingent on the percentage that they contribute to the overall lodging revenue. So for instance, within your packets, we had a model of, a minimum of 7 directors, maximum of 11 within this tourism board, somewhere between 2 and 3 hotel motel, 3 to 4 resort representatives, 1 to 2 short-term rentals. But the idea is that you would, once you get an idea of who's actually contributing what amount, those seats are allocated according to those percentages, so that everyone has fair representation based on what their lodging type is contributing. Because the reality is that each of them have different priorities. I think there's a concern out there as well that, hey, all this money is going to get spent on winter advertising when a bunch of us are closed. And I think it's important to know, there's going to be some on that board that would have that goal of filling the winter, but there's also going to be a lot more people that, carry the votes and would be able to target the shoulder season, which I think is the greatest opportunity for growth. And then I think the other piece that is important is that, we know that regional representation is really important. And I think that it would be challenging to assign seats based on regional representation and the number of, especially actual properties. There's a fair number of short-term rentals in the northern, like in Ted's district. However, in terms of hotel, motel, resorts, et cetera, the count is fairly low. So I think regional representation by assigning seats would be very difficult. And it would also kind of hamstring, in terms of that, getting good candidates. However, that has to be a consideration within that board as well. So those were a few of the high points that we've discussed. Again, it's a little, that's the vision that we have. It is to a certain extent theoretical until any of this passes, and there would have to be some steps taken to make some of those things happen. But and I should also mention that a lot of those conversations, there is a Park Rapids CVB currently collecting tax in the city of Park Rapids that has a board in place, and they are fully in favor of this, unanimous support. Unfortunately, the chair of that organization was not able to be here. She's actually in the ER this morning, unfortunately. So thoughts and prayers are with her this morning. But they've been a part of this discussion and agree with where we're headed. So with that, I guess I would entertain any additional questions that you may have for me.
I was going to say, Derek, this lodging tax is not new inside Hubbard County because Park Rapids has done it for forever and a day. And I would be interested to know, out of all of the facilities that, are part of that lodging tax in the city, what was their initial perspective when it was established, and what is their viewpoint of it now?
ironically, as has been we've had a couple of laughs internally about this, their initial concern was that they, or at least for some of them, was that they would lose control of the marketing dollars and that the resort voice would overtake their voice and all of the funding would be spent on the summer and the off season, and that the winter side of it, which they focus fairly heavily on now, would lose impact. And so, that was kind of their initial reaction to a certain extent, and I think they have grown over the course of this process more and more in support of where this is headed and the vision and the opportunity that is included in it. So, I think they had some initial concern over a loss of authority over funding dollars, because right now, while they have a small pot of dollars, they have full autonomy over that dollars. And so the idea of relinquishing some oversight and bringing in additional voices that might have different priorities scared them initially. But as we've had conversations and talked about the different components of this, and I'd be remiss if I didn't also mention they've also been very big advocates that the funding autonomy and the financial separation is a critical component. So they've been super big advocates on that side of it. But overall, they see the overall opportunity for growth for the area, and that's been their, I would say, the biggest selling point as they've come around and become more in favor of the idea. And I think it's hard when, I heard Floyd mention consensus, and I think if we're being honest with each other, if we wait for full consensus among the lodging community, this will never happen. I think our chamber board recognizes that. There is more support in favor of than you have heard from. When our board made the decision to advocate in favor of this, at that point we had equal number of in favor and opposed. And the biggest portion were those we hadn't heard from. So what I'm finding now is those that are in favor of are less willing to speak out publicly than those that are opposed. However, I think history tells us if we're waiting for consensus, full consensus, a lodging tax will not pass. But we also know that we need to do something. Letting the trends for our community from a tourism standpoint continue the way we're headed and what's happened over the last 20 years and the market share we're losing is very concerning. So we need to take action in some capacity. And our organization feels that while we understand, and we're trying to ride the balance of representing our membership and knowing that not all of our members are in favor of this, but also recognizing the long-term vision and taking care of the community and the overall membership. So it's a little bit of a balancing act. It's about the overall vision of what we want this community and what we want our tourism to look like in 20 years, because the trends that we're on now are very concerning. And unfortunately, I think if the resort community can rally together, that's a really good thing. However, that didn't necessarily happen, or it happened for a very short time after the last time this was discussed at a county level in 05-06. We know that there's a short period of time where the resort community rallied together. There was voluntary surcharges. They contributed. It made a little bit of an impact. And unfortunately, it fell off because everyone started looking around going, well, if they're not contributing, why am I? And so today we have 2 resorts contributing. And at one point, I believe that number was up to 12. So it's one of those things where there's certainly a balancing act. But this is the best possible option. Most of the options out there are not viable solutions. I've heard the sales tax shared a number of times, as I'm sure you have as well. As you know, that's not a viable solution. Membership contributions, voluntary surcharges, these are not viable solutions to be a competitive destination marketing program. So that's where we're at today and why we've shared it. And now you have a little bit better idea of the structure and representation side of it.
And obviously hearing from the folks here today, and I've heard from many folks outside this, and hopefully we'll continue to hear from many of you. The problems we're experiencing have existed since basically the 70s and have kind of morphed through that time into little differences here and there. And I'm sure there's been, as Floyd mentioned to me, several committees formed over the years on how to solve these problems or how to make the situation better. And the only common denominator that I can come up with all the conversations is everybody's probably had good ideas along the way on how to resolve the problem, but there's never been the money. And you cannot market your area without the money. So there's never been a solution on how to fund the ideas that are always these groups come up with. So how do you do that? I would ask you folks and those listening, the three simple questions I ask all the time is, if not now, when? Number two, how do you propose to grow and compete in the changing environment we have? And then number three, are we going to be a tourism destination? Because a lot of the concerns that I've raised just seem doom and gloom to me. Well, are we going to continue to remain a tourist destination, or are we going to resign ourselves to the fact that all of our resorts are going to be putted off at some time? I don't want to give up on tourism in our county, but we can't win if we step up to the baseball game without a bat in hand, if we step up to the plate. We don't even have a bat right now. We're trying to get on base, and we don't have a bat. So that's the big picture I look at. I certainly hear your concerns. I wish there was a more equitable way of doing it, but this is the tool that the state legislature has given us. And this county board had adopted proportionately in 2005 that gives us the ability to do this. And so far, the only entity that has taken the ball has been the city of Park Rapids. And the city of Park Rapids now is trying to do destination marketing for the entire county with $90,000 a year. $40,000 of a year just goes into your, what's it called again?
The Discovery Guide?
The Discovery Guide. So there just isn't enough money to market the area. And if we don't market the area, I mean, it's no different than having a hot dog stand down the street. If I don't tell people about it, they're not coming to buy my hot dogs. They don't know about me. People always say everybody knows where Park Rapids is. I was just down at AMC, Association of Minnesota Counties convention, and, oh, you're from Hubbard County. Where's that? You're from, what's the county seat? Park Rapids. You know, about a third of them don't even know. So there's a lot of work to be done there, but you can't do it without money. And I don't know what that solution is, and this is one option. But doing the same old that we've always done for the last 30 or 40 years, we're losing lodging facilities. They're converting to STRs. Is that what we want across the board? Because that's what slowly continues to happen. Not that I'm against STRs, I'm for any in a bed, because I'm for tourism. And it's a significant part of our Hubbard County economy.
Other board comments?
From the very beginning of this, the one thing that I was really looking for is, I'm not looking for 100%. I doubt that would never happen. But I am looking for at least 51% of the resort owners and lodging facilities to accept this and have that vision, because I agree with everything that David said. It takes money to promote this area, but at the same time, I'm not the one who wants to force this on people who don't want it. If the majority don't want it, then that's how I feel on it. So if they're not ready for it, then maybe there needs to be more work in selling it or coming up with an idea to make it happen. So that's where I'm at. I'd like to, I used to be a resort owner, and I had upgraded all of my cabins to new ones, and we could have been open year-round, and I know I would have been in favor of this. But I don't want to force it on a group of people who are not. So that's where I'm at.
Well, I'm a former short-term rental owner, and I had many comments from people that stayed in our rental that when they paid the bill, they were amazed at how many fees were attached to the bill. And I think people will just see another 3% fee on there, and they're gonna say, you know what, no, I'm not coming next time. I paid this time, but I'm not coming back again to pay another 3%. Because their costs are so high. We even cut rates in order to try to keep vacancies full, but but there's a lot of different aspects that go into a short-term rental. It's where it's at, what you have, the size of the structure, the amenities that the lake has, and so forth and so on. So I guess that's where I'm at with it. And I do agree with Tom. I don't want to force something on people that truly don't want it. If they're afraid of what's going to happen to their business or could happen to their business because of another tax imposed, it's kind of a scary deal.
And I've talked about before, asked the question about promoting Hubbard County. Hubbard County is so much more than just tourism. I believe Hubbard County is a great place to raise a family, and believe it or not, the property tax owners, I made that comment before, out of 87 counties, Hubbard County is number 28 as far as tax rates, which is a good number, but I believe we were better a few years ago. And also, I think about Hubbard County, like I say, besides tourism, great place to raise a family. Affordable properties, maybe, I don't live anywhere else in the state, so I can't speak, but I know that they're not as affordable as they used to be. And I'd also like to, we created the Housing Trust Fund to help with housing. And we also created a countywide economic development authority to help attract businesses, whether that's bringing in existing businesses from other areas, or if they expand, or new businesses. And I want to be known as a business-friendly county. And I'm not sure if a business that would be thinking about coming to Hubbard County, if they see this as a tax, if they might question if we would do something else that we would tax. And another thing, though, is that also is, was pointed out, and it's pointed out on this map, I believe out of the 87 counties, there's only 2 counties that have a county-wide lodging tax. And Hubbard County is so diverse, and I've talked about this before, how in my district, we're more connected to Bemidji. I mean, that's where we work, send our kids to school, go to church, buy our groceries and our clothes and stuff like that. But I do want to promote Hubbard County, and I want to find something that hopefully could not only promote tourism, but could also promote, like I say, Hubbard County just being a great place to live, and a great place to open a business and buy a house, build a house. All those things, I think, combine. And I guess people know how I'm going to vote, and I just, as like Thomas said, and Steve, and I've been hearing it. Was mentioned earlier. The Enterprise newspaper had sent out or had an online survey. It was basically more than 2 to 1 were opposed to it, and then the work that Floyd did here with the 30 resorts or so, and that was overwhelmingly a no. So I can't find where I could vote yes today on this.
So I would like to remind the board that if we voted for this today, this does not mean that we're accepting this. To me, this means that we would have further discussion and we would actually hold a public hearing. After I have answered emails and had phone conversations with people that have reached out, here are some of the questions I have that I don't have answers for today, that maybe I could get further insight if we held a public hearing. So the shoulder season. I've had people express people aren't coming in the shoulder season anymore, or they're coming at reduced rates, but it's not because we're a bad place to come, it's that there's so many more options now. People can fly all over the world for not as much as it used to cost. And so can we capture a lot of the shoulder season? I don't know, it's a question I have. Speaking to resort owners, I didn't get the impression at all that most resort owners that contacted me felt they needed to advertise it all because they're full. However, in the long term, are you running your resort then to hope to sell it as a prospering business? Or are you hoping to do something else with it so it won't be a resort at the end? How if you are only looking at the fact that your resort is full, how are you contributing to the county as looking at as a larger vision? I'm not saying it's good or bad, it's just a question I have. Another thing I'd like us to look at, because I heard this from resort owners, we wouldn't even consider adding on or redoing because the county is so strict in their zoning. So what, if we had a lodging tax and resorts wanted to do something different, what could we do to assist them? So those are just questions I don't have any answers for. So in light of that, I'm actually gonna make a motion that we move forward with this, not because I'm saying I'm in favor of it. I want further discussion and I want all kinds of people to come and give, go ahead, Derek.
Could I just share one request that we would like to advocate on behalf of our membership for is that if we are going to do a public hearing, we'd like to request that we do it in the evening.
Absolutely.
Just so that more people have the opportunity to participate.
We're not taking public comment this time. I'm sorry. And once again, this is not then, if we move forward this way, this is not the county board saying yes for having a lodging tax. I am proposing this because I want further discussion and further definition. There's a lot of people out there that I have not heard from. And there's a lot of people I have heard from.
I do have concerns with the way the resolution is written, though, because the resolution doesn't really say what you just said.
Can we reword it, or does it have to be worded this way?
The first now therefore be it resolved, there would have to be, subject to final approval or something.
Can we not just completely take that resolution out of it and just set a public meeting?
Good.
With that, I could go for that.
I'm not sure we can do that, Jeff. Can we do that? Because that'd be by far the best.
If you want to do that, this is the terminology from the special legislation and the statute that allows the issuance of a lodging tax. Essentially, this says we intend to authorize a lodging tax. We have to publish this, and then we have to have a public hearing. After the public hearing, then you would either affirm this resolution, modify this resolution, or withdraw this resolution. Those are that's the way the legislation and the language is held. If you wanted to back up and say, we'd just like to schedule a public meeting like we did with the ambulance service district, you have that opportunity as well.
Okay, so that would be my motion. That would be a much
Then
better
you would be-
solution.
Then you would still have to, if you decide to move forward, authorize this resolution, schedule the required public hearing, and then have the second resolution. So that, just to explain the process, yes, that's correct.
Okay, so I will make a motion that we schedule a public hearing.
And no resolution?
And no resolution.
Okay.
And since we already have a hearing the day of January 21st, should we do it the evening of January 21st?
If you can get more people.
I'm gonna be leaving.
Oh, you know what, I won't be here either. Come to think of it. What do we,
Was it something that we should be having in the summertime instead of in the dead of winter?
so try not to get it done in this.
Well, there's a lot to do with timing too, I think Derek had mentioned.
There's no doubt that there are fewer resort owners who are present during the winter. However, I've also, there's a little bit of a balance, and maybe those in attendance would share, but I've heard competing interests between when the best, there's really no good time, because when they're most present, they're also the most busy. And so, I think we've had the conversation in terms of when's the best opportunity for participation. I don't have a good, clear consensus answer.
Would March be a good time?
Most of them that are not present in January will also not be present in March. So, late April, early May is probably the first time that you'll start to get more of them present.
Yeah, I used to have to start working on getting the resort ready by mid-April, so, yeah, if we could do
So the 15th would be our second meeting in April if we did it on the evening of the 15th of April?
Yeah, I would think that would be a good time.
Anybody have any?
What if well, then you wouldn't be able to, your next opportunity, if you held it on the 15th, your next opportunity to take action would be in May. I'm just pointing that out as you look at the calendar, because our meetings are on the 1st and the 15th of April.
In which case, you're probably, if at that point the commissioners decided to take action, you're potentially looking at a 2027 implementation date and 2029 before you have any impact.
But reading the tea leaves right here, you don't have the votes.
I agree. I just want to make sure that everyone's aware of
Right.
what that time, like the timeline piece of it. And, ultimately, this is your guys' decision, and fully respect that.
I'm just going to say, whenever we hold a public hearing and people reach out to me, I want them to come with what's their vision for Hubbard County, and what's their vision
So, Madam
for their
Chair, I would
business? Yes.
suggest that if you're looking at April, you don't need to set a date today.
Okay.
That potentially Derek would go back to his board and give you a window that would make sense, and at a subsequent meeting, you could pick a date in that window to set that date.
So would you still think we should do a motion to hold a public hearing, or should we just not take action?
I think you could just table it at this point.
Okay?
If you're not gonna make a motion on the resolution, then I think you could just, and your intention is to hold it later. I don't know that there's any crystal ball that tells us when in April is a good time to hold it right now, but I think we could get that information.
And I guess I would ask the question, so I would say, do you think there would be any change from a public hearing? Because if the question is that we know the resorters are not, the majority of the resorters are not in favor, and the feeling is that they we do not want to levy a tax in that regard, which I think is very understandable. What will we learn from a public hearing? Because I don't know that anyone's going to change their minds within the resort industry over that time. If we're looking for potential alternatives, I would be glad to meet with and try to come up with additional solutions. But I guess my question would be, because I think the question that my board's going to ask me is, where now? And to that, like, I wouldn't be shocked if the feeling is that the vote is not there and that no perceptions will change. Where do we move forward? What's next? Because what's the value of the public hearing, I guess, if the feeling is that there's enough opposition to not move in favor of it? I think that's something that we need to ponder and consider, in that regard, and that's something that our group will have to look at. But I would leave you with that question, is that those that are opposed aren't going to be changing their minds based on a public hearing. And so if the goal is to provide additional information to the commissioners, then maybe there's some questions that we can answer and we can address. But I guess I would be hesitant to hold a public hearing if we don't think there would be a valuable outcome within that.
So I would say to you, Derek, number one, thank you for the work you've done on this, because I know you've spent a lot of time on this, and But reading the tea leaves here, if you aren't able to garner some support from some of the people who are currently in no, I don't know how this passes. And so what it does is it gives you the opportunity over the next couple months to try and reach out to some of these people and see if they'll engage with you in the Chamber of Commerce about solutions to this. And whether you can change any hearts or mind, I don't know. But by that time, you know, you will know whether it's worth pursuing or not anymore. Because I do know you reach out a lot through your chamber emails and stuff, but obviously we're missing some people that aren't chamber members that we need to do a better job of reaching out and getting to them and getting their sentiment and getting them involved in this conversation. And it may arrive at exact same place we're at now. I don't know, but it's worth a couple months to find out. And at that point, if nothing changes, then you're probably 100% correct. It's not gonna change.
So Derek, I had one resort owner say that resorts are on their way out and there will be none within 20 years. I'm just passing that on as a comment. So then, what does tourism in Hubbard County look like without resorts? I'm not even asking you for, you don't even have to give me a comment.
Well, I
That's just a
think
question I'm throwing out.
we're seeing that trend already, Shar. Our 35, or like, I think we have roughly 30%, or I think it was 32.5% of our tourism economy is from second homeowners. So of those with a large number of resorts, the 14 counties that we were tracking, there were only 2 counties that had over 20% of their tourism economy come from second homes, and one of them was Otter Tail at 25%, and we were at 32.5%, and that number is going up. The rest of our tourism economy is shrinking. Our second home percentage is growing. And so if you ask me what's our vision, what are we going to look like in 20 years, if we don't do something to change the course we're on, we will become utterly dependent on second home ownership and short-term rentals for the majority of our tourism economy.
To go to that point, exactly, I mean, I've heard this from conversation with some of the resort owners, that if you truly believe that that's the way it is going, I can understand the sentiment of the resorter riding it out as long as they can to get to a sale of some type and then going into retirement. I get that. That I could see myself in that position. But if that's what we're gonna do, and that's what we're gonna be, then we're kind of resigning ourselves to the fact that the small mom and pop resorts are eventually going to all be gone.
I don't think we want to
So the
accept
question
that.
is, do we want to put up a fight to try and save them or not? And so that's really the big 10,000-foot discussion going on here. Do we want to make an effort to try and save them and make it a viable part of our tourism economy or not? And if your answer is you don't, because you don't want to do the 3%, I can appreciate that position, but understand that, you know, others definitely have different viewpoints on it, but
The real challenge with that is, even though this tax and the authority, the legislative authority is on lodging, tourism in this county is not just lodging. There's retailers, there are restaurants, there are everybody else that's dependent on that tourism economy, and if that goes away, they're all gonna suffer. So those are the people that we have not heard from in this conversation.
Right.
We have not heard from any of them in this conversation. I completely get the resorters saying that this is gonna hurt our business. I don't believe that's true. Nearly everybody who sent me a comment lives in a community that currently has a lodging tax. People from Bismarck, people from Alexandria, people from Minneapolis. We were down in Minneapolis last week. We stayed in a unit that had more than 50 units. The lodging tax was 6%. On top of the 1%, on top of the transit, it was about 18% tax on those lodging nights that we paid when we were in Minneapolis. St. Cloud has a significant. Almost everybody who commented and left me an address, I looked at it, lives in a community that's paying a lodging tax. The people from Colorado, the people from Arkansas, the people from Kansas City are paying 15-20%.
So when we go to.
So in my mind, this conversation has been about the resort owners, and it's gonna hit them because it hasn't hit them before, because that's the only authority we have. But the tourism economy is not just that group. And the other authority that the county board has to fund a tourism destination marketing organization is to levy for it and pay for it through the EDA. That Otter Tail County does that. That is also an option.
So to Jeff's point too, everywhere all of us go, we're paying for their marketing. And you're saying that when they come here, you don't want them to help pay for our marketing.
That may be the only point of holding a public meeting, is to hear those other voices. But I completely get what Derek is saying, and there's no point in scheduling something in April now. There's also no reason to schedule something in April, because we have the ability to do what we did with the ambulance meeting, and we had just as many people virtually as we had in the room. So we have other tools available to us. Doesn't really feel like this is moving to a resolution today.
Yeah, so to Jeff's point, one of the conversations I had with one of the resorters admitted that downtown Park Rapids bases their economy on tourism. And we talked about how we like to shop local. I love to shop local. However, to try buy Christmas gifts from every business in town, a lot of them are geared to people that come in as a tourist. And so if people quit coming, our downtown in every area of Hubbard County is gonna look a lot different.
So there's broad repercussions for all
There
this, and, you know, one of the big things I had on top of my mind when I ran for this position was to try and get people out of their silos and start working together, because we're all interconnected here. We all depend on, every business depends on every business. Yeah, you can't always see the perfect thread in between a resorter and, say, my family's business, but they are interconnected. The dollars all flow through different things, and they all depend on each other in some form or another. So, you know, again, I look at it from a 10,000-foot level, and try to think about what's good for the entire county over the long term. And it comes down to those fundamental questions I asked earlier, you know, and what do we want it to look like? Because right now, the trajectory is not where we all want it to go. We'd like it to be heading the other direction.
So in light of that, I am gonna make a motion to table this. And we will table it, and
We'll wait for here, you know, Derek, I would suggest you reach out to all of these folks as much as you can, or feel you have the capacity to, and try to get the sentiment, and maybe try and have a few meetings with them and see if there's anywhere we can go. And if not, I guess not, you know?
I would like to thank all of you for considering this. It's a big hefty issue. It's one with, short-term implications on a number of people, but also a long-term vision. And there's a lot of factors that go into all of these things. And I want to thank the time that all of you have invested in it as well, participating in discussion sessions, responding to people, and really engaging the public at a high level. So thank you for your service and for everything you guys have done throughout this process. I appreciate it.
I'll second your motion, and I just want to say one other thing. While I personally may think that it's the right thing to do is to go this direction, I also respect your guys' ability to speak your mind and determine your own destination to some degree too. Just realize that it has implications for everybody countywide also.
okay, so we have a motion and a second. Is there further discussion? All in favor of tabling this, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thank you, everyone. I'm going to suggest that we do committee reports at the next meeting possibly. We have an HRA meeting that's already scheduled and we're late. Who would like to attend the department head meeting with me on December 31st?
I think it's my turn.
Okay, so Tom will come. And I will have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Okay, Ted and Dave, thank you. We will take a 5-minute break.